I'm good.
Hey, we're on the Cougarland podcast with Robert Lugo, and I've got my announcer voice on, and now I'm normal. So, hey,
Joe,
Robert.
it's got to be Joe. It's Joe Lugo. Robert's my older
Joe,
brother.
I'm sorry. Damn it. Do over. Now you guys, you get 2 for 1 now.
Yeah,
Right?
that's funny.
No, we were the same grade, right? Giuseppe, Joe?
Yeah, absolutely. As a matter of fact, it's funny. I pulled out. I found a couple photos that my mom had, and I still have them. And then I'm going to get them to you. The fifth grade Miss Wilkie, and in 78, 79, and then I was with Mr. Brune, and you were with Benanti. I did the 79 with Mr. Brune because at that time it was Pellerino Benanti, and then Brune became the third teacher. Because I remember going into 6th grade, I was freaking out. I didn't want either or. I was thinking, oh my gosh, this is going to be brutal, right? And then Brune shows up, and I get into that class. So I have a couple of the class photos still, and it's hilarious to look back at them because as you start to look at faces and you start to connect with you start to names pop in automatically. Like, right. Oh, I know who that is.
Oh, that's a thing called anchors. Like certain things trigger you to a recollection of everything. Something you're going to say is going to make someone else think about something in Vicenza. You could say, remember the rectangular pizzas at the cafeteria in the lunchroom? And those were my favorite. That was my favorite meal day. I don't remember anything else, but I do remember the square pizzas, right?
Yeah, you know what I remember is the smell. There's always a distinct smell in the cafeteria.
That's funny. It smelled like cafeteria food.
Yeah, it's exactly what it was. I remember. Yeah, for sure. I do remember all that stuff. I remember, like, I can remember the whole piece of Vicenza. Like, to me, I just miss that whole environment. I've always said it was a good family environment for me. When I left in 83 and then I came back in 93, I remember, like, every morning I would wake up and I would just go for like a 5-mile run. And my run was about running through Vicenza, remembering things. Like, it was crazy. I was never a runner. And all of a sudden I found myself running 5 miles a day every morning to start my day. And I would run past Monteberry, go back down to where the carnival was at, back around the base, back in the backsides. I just kept going to places to kind of like relive what I was missing for many years. And the craziest thing is that I ran so much and I didn't realize that how small the place really was. When you're younger, you think the place is bigger, but when you get in there, you realize it takes you 2 minutes to walk from one point to another. You're like, oh, that's it. But when you're younger, you thought it was so far away. And then I found myself running throughout Vicenza and making it really easy. But it was great to get back and kind of like see what I had missed for so long, especially when we were pretty much told to leave the place, or we had a choice to leave, and that's what we did.
And abrupt leaving. I had abrupt leaving too. CID and Carbonieri were like, we need you to come down here and participate in this program with us. I'm like, I'm going to participate in the Swiss train option. See you in Germany, pal. Whoops, I'm in Canada. So yeah. So it's a different way. Some people leave like that. Some people leave abruptly and it's just pulled from them, like it was for you and your brothers. And for me, I was waiting to possibly get a job at the Rod and Gun Club Lake, which would have paid really well, like a GS9 job. You could have had a BMW, a nice apartment. I would have been G money with a silly little job like that. It would have been like everything if you think about it now, because the dollar was strong and you're basically earning double for little jobs in the Italian economy. But that didn't come to fruition, and I found the Navy. You found the Coast Guard, which is cool. So I have another shipmate here, basically. And our ratings are similar. Like, you were a bosun's mate, I was a sailor. All that language stays the same. How was the Coast Guard to you? I mean,
it was So how it worked. So when we came back, and I think I told you the story the other day, we were talking on the phone. It's like when we left in 83, that 83 year, I was in my 9th grade basically, and I flunked it because I had to go to the Italian school because I was not allowed to come on
higher standard scores.
Yeah, so my older brother was on his way out to the Air Force, so he had already graduated. My little brother was in 6th grade, Rick Lugo. So I have 3. Rick Lugo was the youngest, and then Robert's the oldest. They called him Bob. So when I got to Maryland, that was a little crazy how it all worked out. But eventually, they took my report card from the Italian school, and they converted it. And I actually was basically pushed up into the 10th grade because I had like a C average rather than a flunk. So I was really happy with that. And then I was going through the high schools in Maryland where I was at. I was outside of DC, And then I was trying to get into the military to get back home to Vicenza. That's what I wanted. So my mother was like, "You're not going to the army because your father went to the army and they desecrated the man. So I'm not going to allow you to go to the army." So I was young. So my graduation in 1986 in June, I was still 17. So my mom had the leverage on me not to sign papers.
Mm-hmm.
So my way of getting back to Vicenza was, how do I get back there through the Air Force and through the military or through the army? And that wasn't working out. I went to the Air Force recruiter, and I was trying to make him sign a piece of paper to basically guarantee me that I would be like a shore patrol cop. I wanted to be a police officer, basically. He wouldn't sign it, so I didn't deal with it. So when I got home, my mom said that day that the Coast Guard recruiter called me, take a look at it. So I jumped on the train, went out to Alexandria, Virginia, met with the recruiter, and I was all about it because I found out that they had a base in Lampedusa, Italy, and I was thinking, like, if I could get in the Coast Guard, and I'm Italian, I speak it, they should be able to get me over there. And that's how it all worked out. So, and I got in the Coast Guard too, because the other factor was my dad was arrested for drugs, right? For cocaine and everything else, and heroin. I saw what the Coast Guard did combating drugs. And I was thinking, that's pretty cool. This is what I want to do. And that's how I got into it too. And I, eventually, I left high school and I got to the Coast Guard, and my first duty station was Key West. I did 4 years in Key West from 86 to 90.
Beautiful
and
place.
I was on a hydrofoil. And on that hydrofoil.
That's even cooler, man. That's like, you're going like 50 knots on one of those things?
Yeah, but 35. If you look at my photos behind you on the top, see that top one up there in the blue? This one here?
Yeah.
That's the hydrofoil.
Well, 35 knots is very fast on the water.
Yeah.
That's like 38, 42 miles an hour, something like that conversion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And those were Navy ships that the Coast Guard bought from the Navy. There was 4 of them. The Coast Guard bought those, and they converted them over into the Coast Guard. So they were original Navy ships.
What was the class of that ship? Do you remember?
It says a WSCS 4. There was 4 of them, 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Was there a specific name? Because I had a friend that was on one of those.
Yeah, so there was 3 of them that we were on. I was on the Petrel. They were all birds: Petrel, Shearwater, and Seahawk.
Okay.
So
that means they could fly. Yeah.
So they were pretty cool. They were like I think maximum 14-man crew, pretty much. One captain, which was a lieutenant, and then all the way down to like a seaman apprentice. So on those 4 years, I walked in as a seaman apprentice. And matter of fact, my ex-executive officer, who was a lieutenant, which I told you, was the commandant of the Coast Guard today, is Carl Schultz. It's kind of crazy story. He's actually running the whole entire Coast Guard, but he was my boss. He brought me on through a recruitment program, basically like, hey, do you like it? Let me get you on here. Let's see if you like it. And, I met with him. They were reviewing everything I was doing to get on that ship. So it was kind of like a little bit of almost like a recruiting job. But I did 4 years. I went from a seaman apprentice to seaman, and then the recruiter for the Coast Guard asked me to stay 1 more year if I could strike becoming a boatswain's mate, petty officer, right? So I struck it, meaning I didn't have to go to school. I did all the tests there, and then I became a BM3, and they kept me on the ship. And basically, he basically promised me, if you stay on that ship 1 more year, you do this for me, I'll give you whatever you want after your term there. And that's how this works. So
could you have changed rate? Like that means MOS to any of you Army people. Could you have changed rate? Because you and I speak the language. So I always go like A school and all these different things when I convert it to AIT, you know what I mean?
Well, yeah. Well, here's the funny story about this whole thing. So when I threw my ASVAB in high school, I didn't qualify very high in the Coast Guard. So I didn't know this. So the militaries, they have different numbers in all these quals. So in the Army, if I went to the Army, I could have got whatever I wanted as far as an MOS. But when I got to the Coast Guard, I was so underneath the actual margins of what the numbers were on my testing scores that I couldn't go to any school in the Coast Guard to become a petty officer. I had to actually, so when I graduated in August of 1986 from the Coast Guard in the academy or boot camp, they sent me to I call it, it's not a stupid school, but it's they call it a beat school. And it's funny, it was a small little school that was in Cape May, New Jersey, and it was called Basic Enrichment Education Program. And I call it's for the stupids. You know what I mean? The guys that barely make it, they come in there, they graduate. So I had to go 30 days after boot camp. And what they did is they kind of
remedial, like after school class, like extra credit. Yeah.
Right. So they got me in there to understand how to do this whole ASVAB again. And then I got another shot at the ASVAB.
Right.
And I did that. So it basically gave me like, I don't remember all all the actual schools I could go to. Like, I think it was, first of all, you could go to, to SS, which was cook, right?
You could be a cook, right? You could be in charge of vending machines. No, go on.
Right. So it's cook, bosun's mate, and there was storekeeper, yeoman, I think, and maybe another one. So I was good with it. I was going to become a bosun's mate anyway. So it was all good. And that's how that works. So I struck it, and I became a BM3 there. And I did 4 years in the Coast Guard on that ship, which was, it was super. I mean, we did a ton of interdictions. Like, it was super on. And back in those days, that was the whole Miami Vice time frame.
What a cool time. So see, you were in the Coast Guard during Miami Vice time, which is kind of cool, plays in your life. You're kind of in that action movie. I was in the Navy during Top Gun. So it all kind of worked out in its own way, right? Even though I wasn't flying anything. But it was funny, you look at that time and you're like, wow. Now the Coast Guard, what you may or may not have realized, has actually a higher standard than a lot of military services, actually higher than the Navy. And that's probably why they gave you such a hard time. Like you said, you would have done better in the Army. And it's like some places are more lenient on some things and other things. You might have get higher up as a Marine than you would have as an Air Force guy, right? So forth. And so, no, I was watching a documentary on the Coast Guard, and they do set a higher standard. It's a smaller unit. That's why. So they want to make sure, well, if we're a smaller unit, then we're going to be pickier, and we're going to raise the standard of what we do. And also because you guys are entrusted with more law enforcement duties than than some of the other services get in most cases, right? Interdiction.
Yeah. Well, the thing that really struck me when I was in the Coast Guard was, I remember one of the statistics they put up there during that time was the New York Police Department was at, I think, at 44,000 members, and the Coast Guard was at like 38 or 39,000 members. And that was the difference, how small we really were. That New York PD was actually bigger than the Coast Guard was. So, and Coast Guard has, small little stations and stuff like that, and that's how it runs. But when you see that number, you start to realize, oh well, it's really, really small compared to NYPD, and then you realize where it's all at. But it was one of those kind of things where I think it was like it was like the Navy smaller, but we did a lot more fraternization with the officers than anything, because it wasn't
like Air Force. You're closer to them. My friend Kevin Merritt, he was a flight crew engineer. Him and the pilots were hanging out having drinks wherever they went. It wasn't right. Where the Navy on a ship of 350 people, I don't know if this goes back to the days of mutiny, they want to keep separation and control, compartmentalization, need to know. There's so many things how they keep you separated. But if you're in a crew of 15 people, you're going to get to know whoever the lieutenant or captain or XO is of the operation there, right?
Yeah, for sure. We went to parties together. I mean, we were always respectful. We had to know our boundary, obviously, right? But there was no problem about, the lieutenant was having a party at the house and everybody was showing up and drinking.
Right. And that's a cool thing. Now, did you, going into the Coast Guard, like, wow, this is interesting, I never knew I was going to like this? Did you feel that way going into it, because you probably had your mindset on an Air Force or other type of path,
It took me a while to understand it. Like I said, when I left Vicenza and came to the States, man, I was so disoriented about what the United States was about. I had no ideas. When I got to the Coast Guard, like I said, when I went to Key West, I had no idea what Key West was. Like, when they give me, so an advantage of going to that 1 month class that I did is that, how before you come out of the academy or the boot camp, I keep calling it academy, boot camp, they give you these billets based on your rankings, right? So the top guy or the top lady in the class is going to get the number one billet that's listed, or the number one selection out of all these selections, right? So what happened to me was, obviously I couldn't select, I was going to the beep school. So, but when I got done with beep school, we got the honors of taking away the next class that was graduating from boot camp, their billets. So when we were there was like 4 of us. We got to select wherever we wanted to go on their particular list.
That they had. For Italy, you're going, where's Italy? Damn it.
Oh my gosh, trust me, I did look.
Oh, I'm going to tell you, you bring that up. So yeah, when I went to my A school in Orlando, basically AIT to the Army and whatever, basically my A school, I was sitting there and I partied the whole time. We were drinking, we were not supposed to, but everybody was just drinking beer all the time, bringing beer wherever they could. Everybody was letting loose after boot camp, having a great old time. It was like a resort, where this was in Orlando. And, the MPs or the SPs, were not just busting people. They were pretty lenient. And, people looked out for each other. It was fun. It got different at the ship. You did something bad, they were on you. But at A school, I had so much fun, and I marginally participated. I was like maybe 65th percentile in my class. I didn't really push. I know how to take tests now to pass anything that come out at the top, but I never applied that focus, hardly ever. I thought, lazily approaching this. So there was one guy ahead of me, and I gave him $50 cash to take another billet, and I got California. So the guy ended up in Philadelphia. I'm like, sorry, dude. Sorry, I hustled you. $50. That was
I
it.
never even thought about it that way. If I was smart, I would have did it then. But I didn't. I just picked Florida. I don't know why it was Florida, and I think it comes back to Miami Vice because before I left, Miami Vice was on TV. I think, oh, Florida's the place we're going. I remember my mom telling me.
Did you get one of those jackets where you Don Johnsoning it around town?
Oh my gosh, you don't want to know, man. Listen,
listen but what I'm going to do is chop the top off my Honda Civic and okay, go ahead.
Hey, if you see that dress mode, listen, my brother Bob, if you talk to him, he'll tell you when I used to come home and meet with him back in Maryland, I was wearing those kind of clothes. Like it was all like I was into Cavaricci jeans. I had all these like, I don't know, black and white, like, I don't know, slip-on shoes with the big medallion on the top of the part of the foot. I was
wearing like the neon kind of shirt, t-shirt under the seersucker jacket.
That was me, man. I had like, I think I had like the old South Florida look with a little bit of the curls in the front of my hair and a little bit of slick back. It wasn't a mullet, but it was close because, I had to be trained for the military. I had to keep myself in code, right? So
right.
I had the double earrings, I had to, fish line it, make sure they wouldn't see that because they would try to, UCMJ you if they found out you had an earring, right? Because you were like destroying government property, right? You couldn't even get earrings. So you had to kind of get the earring, take it out, put the fish line in it so they wouldn't see it and then kind of like.
You had that, you had like, I get my disco outfit. I'm in the disco army at night, but during the day, I'm in the Coast Guard. No, I know there's funny, like guys would do that. They'd grow their hair long and then comb it back and then all kinds of stuff. Same in the Navy. Yeah. It's just different. The Navy probably felt way more industrial than your Coast Guard experience. I think the Coast Guard would have been fun. I think I would have really liked it. It's like I met some guys from the Coast Guard and they had a different vibe to them than what we did. Ours was intense. It was like, screaming, yelling all the way down all the time.
Yeah. It's a real military organization. The Coast Guard is, but we're kind of like,
you're like a police military, you're like a police military.
Yeah, you guys used to call it, the Navy used to have a name for us in Key West, which was called puddle jumpers.
Okay. Just like the airborne jogging by the guys at the front of post that worked in the motor pool or something that weren't airborne, they called them legs, right?
Oh
yeah, your legs, because you're always on the ground, you don't jump. It's like
So that's what they used to refer to.
They called them wind dummies, by the way. So it was a good get back. I got one right over here, right behind me. There's a wind dummy, but
yeah, got you. We did Caribbean patrols, and I think the most we went out was between 10 to 12 days. So we were gone for 10 to 12 days, and we just come home. So it's not like we did like 6 months. I think they do it now because with the Middle East, there's a lot of ships that even the Coast Guard boats get down there now.
Yeah,
they sit for quite a while. But back in those days, man, we would do like a 3-day patrol. We'd come back in 72 hours or do a 96er, but 2 weeks was the most we'd ever do. But I wasn't, I'm going to tell you this. I went to the Coast Guard not knowing that the ocean wasn't for me. So,
right.
Yeah, I was one of those kind of guys they would give me a bottle of Dramamine, whatever it was. I sucked the whole bottle down. Like, like I was not a seagoer. Like I was the guy that they would send we would do a boarding of a sailboat. They couldn't send me inside to do the search or anything like that because I just couldn't do it. So I would get on that boat and I would be on the top of the boat hanging onto the mast and I'd be just chucking it over on the side because I was
with your gun over there. Over there.
I love the ocean when it's completely flat. Like I love the beach, but listen, you put me on a boat with a 2-foot chop, we're in trouble.
That is funny, man. Now I've been through some 30-foot waves. I've been through some crazy stuff. I went around the world, man. I've gone around the world a couple times on a ship. So it's different. Our ship was way bigger than yours. The difference was in the Coast Guard, you probably had barracks and stuff. You probably had
yes,
probably very nice.
We did.
Did you have your own or did you have a roommate? I mean, how was it as an enlisted man?
So the barracks in Key West was a brand new compound that they built. It was amazing, right? I had 3 roommates, 1 bathroom. The rooms were set up, like we were all divided out in the room. You know, the 3 guys that I had were actually good friends of mine, but it was super on. You would go out, so I could sleep on a boat if I wanted to. I could eat on the boat if I wanted to, because we had our own galley, or I could go to the actual base and eat there. But it was really easy. So I would just grab my bags and jump on the boat. We'd go out for patrol, come back, and I'd come to my barracks, and that's how we lived. So, but it was really, really cool. And the barracks had everything. Like, I mean, TV rooms everywhere, pool tables, laundry rooms everywhere. So it was set up almost like a hotel back in the 80s, if you can remember how hotels were then. It was all set up. So they actually took care of you. So that's for sure. I mean, the Air Force is the best when it comes to taking care of you. You know, they have everything, but the Coast Guard does the same thing too. I mean, look, Friday was lobster day, you know, like that's how they did it, you know.
You're living the good life. Let me show you where I lived for 3 years. Now, you probably lived here when you went to sea. This was my barracks, dude. Look at that. Okay, so this is where I was living. This, all my stuff that I own fit in this little locker, and these are three high, and actually they were usually parallel. So you had a couple feet of space. This was your personal space. This is like one of those Japanese tube hotels, but half the size. And we did not have barracks, man, because we were seafaring son of a guns. Oh, yeah. So you would pull into port. Your car wasn't there. They were changing ports all the time. There was like, having a car was worthless because it sit there 6 months out of the year minimum.
Yeah, for sure.
Probably 10 plus months out of the year. So that was the difference. That was the difference. I'm like, man, that would have been fun to be in the Coast Guard. And it's funny because the Navy was just a different place at the time. And I still love it though. I guess sometimes something's hard, you overcome it, you learn to love it. And we are way on the nautical talk. I got to dial you back to Vicenza.
Yeah, for sure. But you know, it's part of that whole thing of me trying to get back. You know, I told you I try to get back so hard. If they could send me back, you know, and any kind of little thing, I was the first one, you know, in line. So it's funny, when I went back in '93, I went back on my own. I finally did it. I went back there and I couldn't even speak like the language. I was stuck.
You were tongue-tied? I had that happen once.
I was having a hard time.
It was like all the words were bunching up and they wanted to come out. So I had to slow down because I was ready to go, you know, and
Correct.
The machine gun was loaded and it should have just been one shot at a time to work your way up, the momentum.
Correct. And that's what happened. But the funny thing is that, so I got back there then, and once I came back, so I was on that special, so what happens in 1999, I get into the special unit. It's called Drug and Addiction Assist Team. They're a 20-man unit. They support DEA. We did the drug wars so I did it from 90 to 94. And all our job was to go down to wherever they needed us. So first of all, we had to go to school. I had to go to Ranger School. So imagine that. I was out of shape.
Big change. The boot camp requirements for Ranger School and Coast Guard are like the difference between trying out for ping pong and marathon running.
Yeah, so I'm 21 years old. I'm going through now. I get to this unit because the billet officer said, okay, give you whatever you want. Here's what you want this. I'll give you that. I'm thinking, oh my gosh, how am I going to do this? I'm out of shape, right? I didn't run. I didn't do anything. So when I got to the special unit, they said, listen, you have to be an E5 to get in. We'll get you in as an E4. Just show up at the door. So I go to Portsmouth, Virginia. I show up and the boss is like, his brother played for the Denver Broncos. And this guy was like 6'5". He looked like a huge lineman football player, totally ripped up, right? And I walk in there and he looks at me. He goes, what are you doing here? I said, I have orders to be here. And he looks at me and I'm out of shape and he knows that. And I'm thinking, this is a unit that needs people in shape and you got to be on your toes, right? It's a special unit, special forces kind of thing. They were creating this thing that had never been created before. Little by little, they get me in and I get roasted. I'm the worst guy there out of the 20. You know, I'm the guy in the back running, you know, trying to catch up.
Trying to keep up. Yeah.
Right. I go to Ranger School. You know, I'm not. You know, I have no clue what I'm doing.
Did they give you any prep though before like a upkeep, like a, you know, you have 3 weeks to get in shape or a month to get in shape?
And that was it.
They had to. That's the big.
Yeah, I'm running. I was running at nighttime in the mornings trying to get myself into some shape. I knew it was rough. Most of the guys there were in their late 20s. I was early 20s or 30s or 40s. And these guys were going to fight narco traffickers, right? This was a big deal. Some of the guys had been there already. They created a special unit that was not publicized.
Right.
So I get to Ranger School, get out. So that's what happened in that meantime. So in 93, I'm there for 3 years. So when I go visit home finally.
Let me slow you down. how foreign was it going from Coast Guard culture to Army Ranger culture?
Another planet, another planet. I had
Land,
no
land,
clue
land,
anything.
land nav, ruck marching, more
Yes,
weaponry, more
yes.
entry techniques, probably, you know,
I
all that
had
stuff,
no
right?
idea. Weapons, when they so they took us through, because DEA was also involved in this thing. So they took us. It was a reformatted Ranger School with DEA and Coast Guard in one piece together. So we had agents with us, and they had everything set up. The only things we didn't do were the desert phase out in Arizona, and we didn't do any jumps. But
Yeah, so you're
everything else
basically
was
doing CQB entry, navigation, survival, land survival, all that different stuff. So now you're doing a land job, and
correct.
right, which is different. It's different. I'm just pointing this out because a lot of people are ex-military, but it is different in the case that like people have learned since all the wars over in the Middle East and stuff, that the Army is made for long term on the ground, and
Yeah,
like a Navy SEAL per se is like a SWAT team. They pop in, they pop out. They're not on patrol
correct.
all day long. They're
Correct.
they might show up a couple times a week, and the rest of the time they're in their clubhouse bench pressing and working out and staying in shape.
Correct.
So they're
Correct.
not used to the prolonged hardening thing, right?
Correct. And I kept telling myself, like, I was like humble about where I was. And I was like, get through it, work on it. And I started putting myself in shape because I was in no shape. And then little by little, that's how it transpired that I got myself in shape, because you started to realize what you were going to do. I didn't understand more or less like where I was going to go and what I was going to do professionally with this whole narco trafficking world. It was a little bit crazy, but as I got into it and I graduated and I moved to the next step, like I said, they then sent me to 3 months of Guatemala to learn Spanish. I was absorbed by a family, sat in Guatemala for 3 months, learned the lingo. I was good at it because, I had
Italian.
Yeah, right. And I
It's
took
probably quick, right?
yeah, and then I took a Department of State, what do you call it?
Did you go to the school out in Monterey or no?
No,
DLI, Defense Language Institute? No.
no, I didn't have to do that.
The 3 month immersion was adequate, right?
So what happens on that, I end up taking a Department of State test out of that 3 months, and I qualify as a translator.
Mm-hmm.
So I took this test that I was like, okay, I'll take this test and see how I score, and I scored very well, which was super for me. So on all of that, I ended up going to a couple of tours in South America, doing my stuff, and then I get home to Vicenza. When I left after 2 weeks, I got back to Virginia, and within a week, my boss called me and he said, "Hey, I got this offer to send somebody to Bosnia. You're gonna, but sit in Naples, Italy, and help out with Bosnia conflict, help out the Norwegian Special Forces, and get on the ground and help some of these guys do some patrolling." And he goes, "You're an Italian guy. Would you want to go back?" And I had just gotten back from Italy, and they actually put me back on the plane because I accepted it. They first classed me out. They Learjetted me out from once I got into, I think, Naples. They took me into Mallorca, Spain, where I met a Norwegian ship, and I was with their special unit for like a whole week. So we went from Italy to Mallorca, Spain. I got on the ship. I was just an E4. Right, so I got on this Learjet. They get this naval captain. They take him off the Learjet to fly me.
Yeah, it was kind of high profile what they were doing. So
it was
of
crazy.
course you're going to get the VIP. It was a very unique thing.
Right.
A lot of people don't know the Coast Guard.
Right.
Not doing these things normally. So when it's an international and it's a handshake, they're going to give you you're going to get the treatment.
And that's what happened. So I get up there, and then within a day, we traveled back down into Naples. We docked there, and we did a lot of things with the base there. I was at the naval station there in Naples, whatever it was called. So I was there, and I was thinking to myself, "This is great. I'm back home. I get to do things." And in that same time, I taken an additional 2 weeks of leave. Once I got done there, I just took a plane from, I think it was Rome. I flew right into
Venice.
I think I went to
Milan.
I don't know if I went to Milan or Verona someplace. It was a little hub because it was internal.
Little hub.
So yeah, and that's what I did, and I was loving it because I was like, they gave me the opportunity to go back on them, and it was super. And the funny thing is that I found myself in a great spot, living both another time in Vicenza. Now I was able to even get even more out of Vicenza because I I felt really bad not being able to get more out of it. I think my brothers and I, and we all talk about it, that we felt like we were it was taken away from us being able to be with our friends. And my brother graduated in 84 or was it 82? But I was not able to graduate. I was not able to get 9th, 10th, 11th grade and graduate there and do the whole thing. You know what I mean? I felt like something was taken away by leaving. And then when I came to the States, I never got any of that. I was in 3 different high schools in 3 years, and I made 1 or 2 friends, and that was it. And because I kept trying to get back, because my family and the base of my youth was in Vicenza, because before Vicenza, we were in Würzburg, Germany for 7.5 years. So we did like 14 total years in Europe.
So what grade were you when you got to, what year and what grade were you when
I got in there when I was in 3rd grade, like half of 3rd grade. So my grandfather passed away in Italy, and we were in Germany. So my father was able to get orders to get us back to Vicenza, because my mom was from Vicenza. Her father was passing away. So they got us back.
Are both your parents Italian, or your mom's side, or?
No, my father's Puerto Rican. Okay. So they met, he through the military. So when he went to Italy, they met that way. And then
she was a local national Italian, your mom?
Yeah, right. Yep.
A real Vicentino Italian from Vicenza, or?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Full blown. I think I don't have the story right. I think my mom.
Well, see, that kind of roots makes that your home. To me, my roots initially was my dad's family in Boston, or my mom's family in Canada. And other than that, that was all my roots. So I can understand. I was like, why is he trying to get back to Vicenza? It's like Mission Impossible 5.
Yeah.
But the truth is, I get it, because that was home. And then the States was foreign, where it was an opposite shift for the average American kid. I'm going back to the world, Ma. I'm going back to the States, right? So that's the conversion. That makes absolute sense to me. So 3rd grade till 8th and a part of 9th, right?
I finished 8th grade, and that's when I stopped. Once I got, so what happened, I have the paperwork. He gets in trouble like the beginning of that year in 82. Father gets in trouble, gets arrested, stuff like that, and things so they let us finish the class that year. We finished, so I finished 8th grade. I was supposed to go into 9th. So my little brother was in 5th. So my brother, he was graduating, right? 82. So he graduates in 82. So nothing happens to him. They allow him to graduate too. So he's one of those ones where you put up a photo that he graduated at the Teatro Olimpico, right?
Right.
So he's one of those guys, right? They let him graduate, which was great. And then they let us finish school, which was great. But the following year, my brother was working at, what is it, Four Seasons toy store?
Oh yeah, Four Seasons on Post. Yeah, yep.
Yeah, so he's working there. So there, there's nothing that he can work there, obviously. But my little brother and I had to transfer out and go to the Italian school for 1 year. And then in that same time frame, my mom was working. I don't know if she was at the PX first. She worked in the shoe department, and then she transferred over and worked for Mrs. Spittle at the military clothing sales store when they had their little shop by the gymnasium over there.
Okay.
Right.
Little boutique.
So yeah, she stayed there, and then we had a one-way ticket out of Vicenza, because that's what the military said. We'll pack your stuff, we'll give you a one-way ticket, and you're out, and let you stay on your own. And that's what happened. So my mom took that ticket, and she transferred us out, and we went to we ended up in Virginia. Mrs. Spittle helped us out, got kind of get to, so Marcus and Teddy and all those guys were pretty tight when it comes to what her, the mom did for us to help us out.
The Spittles have helped. They've been there for a lot of people, man. I mean, Teddy had the website. They've kept people in touch. It's like, from being a superstar football player to being a humble, good guy taking care of people. Ultimately, Teddy shows his heart. He's a great guy, man. And he's really tried to reach out and help other Cougars. And the family was the same way. They sponsored Derek Gould, right?
Right. And I remember him.
So he could stay in Italy. And there's other people that sponsored other people so they could graduate out of Italy. Like Barry Pinicky, the Brams sponsored him. And then Mike Coley was another guy that gets sponsored by the Parkins. So that was kind of how people got to stay, if they got lucky. Because people want to graduate from there, more than they want to graduate at some big school in the States. You'd be sitting there, I'm going back to the States. Oh, you're so lucky. And like, I'm going to a place full of strangers, and I didn't grow up with these kids, and I'm not fitting in. As you well know, I went to summer school in Kentucky. They hated my guts.
Oh my gosh!
Just because I was something different. I'm there with Italian, Kangol sweats, looking all They got skull in their back of their jeans and Panama Jack shirts. Like, hey man, I'm like, oh my god. I walked into as the bad guy on the Dukes of Hazzard, I guess. But that was some kind of the same thing for you in that assimilation, right?
Yeah, realistically, I when I got to Virginia, I just couldn't put the perspective of how big the roads were. I couldn't put the perspective of how everything was so far away. We didn't have a car. We didn't have anything, right? We were and I was like, why are we here? Why are we here? Why did we have to come here? This doesn't make sense. So it was in Dale City. I went from Garfield High School to High Point High School in Maryland, and then to Northwestern High School in Maryland when I graduated. So 3 high schools in 3 years. That's how quick. So imagine how that was. It was just a transition every so many months. I was going to another high school because we were moving. We weren't set up. And that's what, but the Spittles, like I remember seeing Marcus, meeting with Marcus and his brother one day. I forget. I think I was in that special unit in the Coast Guard, and I used to do my mount out. So before we would go to Bolivia, they used to all get us into Quantico, and we would do, I think, 3 or 4 days of requals phases to get us back into the mode before we would go down to South America. So they call it a mount out phase. And we would stay right there in Dale City. And then when I would get in there, I would call the Spittles. Hey, I'm here. I come and see you. Say hello. So we met like one time because I was there and I knew they were there. It was a lot of respect for what they've done for us. Just being able to land us basically in the United States and kind of get us to maneuver a little bit. It was important. And Marcus and I talked a couple of times because he's a cop up there in Dale City, and we talked a little bit back and forth on some things. I was a cop and he was a cop, so it was pretty cool that we were both the same side of things, and we connect once in a while still. But it was one of those kind of things where it was not easy. At least for me, my brother was easy, older one, because he went to the Air Force, so he was down in Texas or whatever he did his boot camp.
He had it all figured out. He just turned the key and he was gone.
And my little brother was easy because he's young, so he can really adapt quickly. The younger you are, you adapt a lot quicker. And he's got all his buddies. He's at Silver Spring High School, and then he went to University of Maryland for a year. He was playing football. He was like a red shirt. He was trying to get to Penn State on all these things. And that's so Rick obviously had it a little bit easier. He has a lot more friends than I ever had in the United States. But like you said, the ground zone for me was Vicenza. My good friends still exist today. So when I go back there,
you're Italians, right?
Yeah, they're right on spot.
Conversation leaves from the last panino you ate with them.
That's right.
Silver Cafe, right? Pretty much.
And it's funny because Lenny, the craziest thing is I could be walking down the street in Vicenza and I get stopped all the time. Hey, aren't you Joe Lugo? And I'm like, yeah, and I'm trying to recollect people. Like a lot of the friends that I had, I don't remember who they were, that were part of the little soccer thing that we did outside. I get stopped all the time. I stopped all the time.
Well,
it's all family.
I'm going to give you this. So you were being recruited at that time to go into what they have the pro teams, but they have junior pro teams. I heard about this in England. They do it in Europe. They start recruiting you like American farm teams for, like, let's say baseball.
Right.
They start in the college era, in the college ages after high school. But in Europe, when they start looking for soccer kids, they look at them very young, elementary or junior high. And so, you were getting inducted into this potential professional soccer with the Italians.
Yeah. So what happened was, right. So because I played on the outside with my friends all the time, soccer was my life. So when I played 1 year JV at VHS. My brother's got the photo. I think I told you this. He's got the 82 photo, right? He's got the photo the year before. He got all the older guys in there. He's got me in there too, right? And Mr. Ritchie had me in there. And I remember I traveled with the varsity team as an 8th grader to Aviano. So was kind of cool to be able to go with the varsity team. And then he tried to get me to go to Brindisi, but I think whoever was the principal at the time wouldn't allow it to happen because I was too young. And I wasn't in high school yet. I was still JV. I was an 8th grader. So I was very fortunate. So because, I used to play on the field, but when I was playing on the field, I got converted to a goalkeeper with the Italian club. And I was starting to play with a club. And that club was at by the Polisport. Remember where the track was?
Yeah, right near where I live. Yeah, right near me.
Right. So right next to it was that big soccer field in the stadium, right? Remember, I think 1 year, the 509th played, what was the regular military team at the base? There was 2. And 509th was one team. And then the other one was
I know I forget, but Mike Walker knows. And I think he mentioned in one of our earlier podcasts. And you knew Mike Walker too, because he was there in your era. And I'll drop names with you in a second. We'll see.
Yeah.
If you remember. But go back to the soccer.
Yeah, so my dad played there also on that team, but that club was where I was home base. So that stadium is where Fiamma used to be located, FIAMMA.
Mm-hmm.
I played there. So I got recruited by some coaches that came around the little small field where I lived at, watching soccer players play. I get there as a player in the field. They recruit me. So I'm a player in the field. I'm an American. It's like, wow, this is an American guy here. So in time, they create 2 teams in there, and they needed a goalkeeper for a second team to play in some big Vicenza tournament, some regional things. So I became that goalkeeper because, I could catch. Right. So that's how I converted. It's from there.
You're being the young Dino Zoff, right?
Dino Zoff, yeah. Right. So I became that goalkeeper. So the next season, I move up into the Giovanissimi, and then I'm only like 12 to 13, and in that whole 12 to 13 bracket, that whole season, I think we win the season. I think we lose like 2 games out of 22. So I'm this goalkeeper that's making a ton of saves, and I have a lot of pro scouts coming in to watch, which was kind of crazy to me. I don't understand that. So the 83 season, I actually get pulled into the office, and they actually put a contract in front of me, and they said, "Hey, we're going to loan you out. We're going to sell you, basically."
I'm for sale.
Right. Yeah. I'm like, I'm thinking, oh, this is the greatest career, because I've always wanted to be a soccer player. That was my dream. I went from doing a 1-year contract with them, because that's what they did at the club at the normal base, to a 5-year contract. And that's so I'm in there, and they're asking me, I'm a little kid, man. I'm 13. They have me sign a contract without your parent there. That's how crazy that was, right? Back in those days. So I signed this contract, right?
Don King. Yeah, I'll make this boxing match, put all your money in my pocket, but go on.
Yeah. So eventually that's what happens. And then that week, I was like, oh my gosh, they got to go see my mom, and this is going to be crazy, and I'm not going to tell her. So they eventually show up at the apartment like a few days later, the coaching staff and everybody else with this contract. And I'm going home that day, and I see the cars outside the apartment complex. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is great. I'm all nervous. Well, they were upstairs trying to negotiate, and my mom wouldn't sign it because she had already made sure that we were going to the United States. We were leaving. And my uncle was a big time rep for Campagnolo. He used to do the bikes.
Remember gosh, those $20,000 bicycles. I think Mr. Monteith had one. The ones you could lift up with one finger, because the body was so light. Right.
My uncle makes my brother Bob a bike like that. I forget what the poundage was, right? It was he all handmade, right? And my uncle had told me he used to work for the club Vicenza at the ticket office at the stadium.
Okay.
He knows about all this stuff. He's in the sports, and he says, listen, if he goes and something happens to him, he breaks his leg, they have the contract, he can't get out of it. It's no different than today, right? But nobody really knew then, right? And because of what happened to my father, my mom wasn't willing to take that chance. So basically, I got my heart broken, and I was like, gosh. So we eventually go to the States, and I get back into soccer because I knew that I could be that soccer player here in the United States. And my brother Bob and I really searched to get into clubs and doing all this stuff. And
the level was high. Let's be honest, the level was higher in Italy.
Oh,
at that time, right? Because
huge.
Like, I'm around the martial arts world. At one time, the best martial arts in the world was only out of Japan. If you wanted to learn karate and you learned in Japan, or you wanted to learn taekwondo and you learned in Korea, you could be Chuck Norris. If you learned karate, you could be so-and-so, right? Then it came to the States, and Americans were bigger and athletic and different shapes and sizes and different body shapes, where, then they started using that athleticism against Japan, and Japan's own art kind of like, oh, well, we taught you soccer, now you're beating us because you guys are 7 feet tall, whatever. Right. But the same thing, it's like you used to go there, Italy. I don't think our high school team, could really get beaten by a pickup game from some kids all walking out of an apartment, because it was in the Italian blood. It was, 365 days a year. It's how much you practice, right? I've been around some world champions in fighting. The difference between the best and the guy that goes out and parties after he gets his paycheck,
right?
One's the best and one's not, right? So like if it's seasonal to you in the States, not a lot of guys were prepping for soccer year round like you were. So you take that training, you come back to the States, that must have opened doors. I mean, I bet you walked in training at that higher level, right?
It was good. I mean, I had no issues in high school with soccer. Like I was the guy, you know what I mean? I could do it all, you know what I mean? But the problem was at that time, recruiting wasn't a big thing. You know, I can
It
remember
was dead in the States back then. There was hardly, unless you're going to the Olympics and
Yeah.
hey, are you still interested? Oh yeah, I work for the Olympics. Did you need some help? I was out fly fishing. You need I'm kidding, but you get my point.
Yeah, but soccer, it just, and it's funny, I didn't learn this until like 2011 when I went back home and I was speaking to my aunt. My aunt tells me this in 2011 when I had graduated in '86 out in Maryland. My grandmother at the time, my aunt, tried to get me back through my mom, basically saying, "Hey, listen, we can get him back here, and then he can resume his soccer career." But I had never knew that.
Wow.
So my aunt tells me that, right?
Part of your psychic draw, you knew you wanted to go back and finish the mission. You sound like you're very oriented, that you have follow through. So I would bet
it's crazy you say that.
Part of your draw back to Italy, the association I'm making is like, I got to go back and finish the mission, right?
And this is funny because this whole thing with soccer is really kind of in a good spot when it comes out to it, where I'm at today, right now. So when I was in Italy, I was a ball boy for Vicenza. Like I was actually on the field. Like I was that
You're
kid.
MC Hammer for the baseball team.
I was doing everything possible to, like, I was a ball boy. I used to sell drinks at the stadium. Like, you know, I was like 11, 12. I'd walk around with the little thing full of like the Cokes and stuff like that. And like whatever it was, 150 lira for a Coke and this and that. I would walk around. I would sit up in the top. I would get in with the players. Like I was all soccer. When I was at home, we had a bar by the apartment. Man, players from Vicenza would show up, and I was that first kid running down the street to get autograph. I chased them down. Like that's how big it was for me. Soccer was the life that I wanted.
You probably had a lot of figurini too, right?
Oh, I had everything. Figurino, yeah. I used to play the game. You know how you remember the game?
Yep.
I used to flick them trying to win, and you would soccer was life for me all the way through. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And it is today. It's still in there. It's inside of me still. But that piece that's how it works. So the funny thing is, so in 2011, when I go back, my mom, because she knows exactly what I was going through, my whole story, she does some work for me when she's back in Italy. She puts everything together. She gets my resume, because at this time, you know, I get my licensing in the States. I start doing all this stuff in the States as a coach. She actually gets me to Vicenza again, to the team. They're in Serie B at that time. Right? They still are today.
Rossi raised them to A. That was the first and maybe only time they were raised to A, right?
Baggio gets them to A also.
Okay, so there was
Baggio,
another.
Right.
When did Baggio, did that happen after? Because I wasn't keeping up after Rossi.
I think Baggio gets them there. I think after '83, because I think something happens and they go down to B, and then Baggio raises them.
ABA, you know, that kind of time.
Yeah.
And then B for decades, right?
Right. I don't have all the timelines on, but Baggio, it's funny. When I was in the 9th grade in the Italian school, Baggio was at Vicenza, but kind of coming in. And I was actually I think he's 1 year older than me. We were kind of like back and forth with things. You know what I mean? I would hear about him a little bit, and then I would try to do myself in, because I got invited to play for not the Primavera for Vicenza, but the lower team. They were a little bit younger. I got invited. Like, it was crazy as a goalkeeper. They wanted me in there too. And I saw my career like, oh, I'm going to be this guy, right? So this kid, I'm in this world. But she gets me back there in 2011. I have full carte blanche entry to that stadium in training. They bring me in. I get to watch all the trainings. I get to do whatever I want, document. They sign shirts for me and stuff like that. Every day that I go back, they're like, hey, can you come back tomorrow? Can you come back? So in 2011, I was thinking to myself, you know what? I could probably come back as a coach if I get this right. And I was thinking about that. I never pursued it because I would have to do the whole visa thing, and then I would have to do that. Was just too much for me. But what I was doing in 2011, I was taking the information I got there and I was bringing it back to the United States, and I was doing my own training stuff here. And that's how it started to evolve. I was pulling stuff from there, bringing it here, and then I started pushing. And I started to realize that I could take all this stuff that I had and start to create my own goalkeeper academy here in the States. And that's exactly what I was doing. So until today's date, like, I got pros all the way down to the youth. And I do a lot of conferences. I go places, I have a lot of good goalkeeper friends, and it's all about the information that you transfer back and forth, and then you put it out there. And I always told myself, just give back. So a lot of people are like, oh, yeah. So
you get to see it manifest, whether in you or someone else. Because had you got in and won a great game or even a World Cup, even that fades in time. Coaching
Correct.
is something you get a new rush. They might be incremental, small little ones, but they're pleasurable and they're great. And to see growth and to be taking your knowledge and seeing somebody absorb that it gives a coach great fulfillment. So being a coach's son, yeah, I know this. I mean, I know exactly
There
what
you go.
that is, right?
And it's fun. I think it's
No.
so fun. I get this return of players, especially in the United States, because soccer is still growing here big time. But it's great because, it's like today's date. I've actually connected with big time scouts in Italy who call me directly
Yeah.
for big time players. I'm not an agent, and they're like, "Can we get him to the MLS? Can you help me?" And I don't know what to do with a $15 million player because I'm not an agent, right? I'll make some phone calls because I got some connections. But listen, this whole visa, international play, international thing, work. I don't. It's not me. But it's humbling to know that those are the connections that exist through me.
Well, they have faith in you because
Yeah, it's
probably because
credibility.
you're open door, you're not hustling, you're a purist, your love for the game. They can get an honest answer, and I think that's like they're not. I don't know who the Don King of soccer is, but there was a Giovanni Re. I don't know, I'm making it up, but you know what I mean. So watching the podcast, who did you recognize? What triggered any flashbacks? Seeing any of these shows? Who have you seen? Then you're like, oh yeah.
Well, it's funny. My brother Bob and talking to Denise Miller, when I saw the Denise Miller and Cinzia podcast, it started to be like, I actually looked at that. I was like, because you listen to the stories and, I have one story and they have stories too. And everybody has a story and everybody has a story because when you're younger, you don't know this. And now it's fun to kind of understand. So the Millers, like, man,
Bobby,
I had a lot of sleepovers
Gina,
at Bobby Miller's
Denise.
house.
Yeah.
I slept over there a
Troy.
lot. We had weekend sleepovers and I was there. Because Bobby and I were kind of pretty tight with things, right? And I know Gina and I know Denise, and Denise was in Bobby's area, but Bobby and I, and Gino too, and I used to always be there pretty much. And my mom and the Millers were really good, and they don't know this. And my mom probably has a better story, but Mr. Miller helped us out a lot because of his position in the military with what happened to my father and how, I think a lot of that was helped out through him too. But I'm very grateful to them for, especially the parents for what they've done for us, you know what I mean? Because I know he was a big key in the whole thing. I used to hear the stories, but I was a little young to understand a lot of that. So, basically, like I told you before, like as soon as this happened with my dad, man, and they sent him to Leavenworth, man, it was it, man. They just cut everything off. Everything was just kind of like zeroed out.
Well, to paint the picture better, even your father was a Vietnam veteran, and a lot of people came back there. A huge amount of people. I've met and I've talked with a lot of them. I used to hang out with them. A lot of them had a lot of trouble, whether it was some drug addiction that they developed by being over there because that was being pushed, and people were freaked out and they're seeing all these horrible deaths and all these things that people tend to go that way. And I knew a lot of them that left there with the habit, and you see it portrayed in old movies, or you see Rambo. That's the other movie. He came out of Vietnam and he went hitchhiking and then he started attacking the sheriffs. But I'm just saying, I understand the PTSD thing because a lot of veterans do get this. And all the stuff that he went through, people didn't really understand that at the time. And they might have taken a little different course with that then to understand that. They might have sent him to a rehab and they might have said, hey, do this. But back then, the Scarlet Letter, that was like a huge, like, oh, you don't do that. I mean, between getting busted for drugs, I don't know, shooting somebody downtown or robbing a bank, they were kind of like categorized then. But I do think that, it was probably very tough to be ripped from your roots because you were there from 3rd grade to 8th. A lot of the people here. You remember people. I'm sure if you see Rosanna Bonamago, you're like, oh, I know her. Mike Walker, right?
Yep.
Who else did you hang with out there? I know that, because you had the real Italian thing. See, the guys that had an Italian parent,
it's funny.
Usually hung in an Italian sector like Dinges, David Dinges, who you know too, right?
I know Dinges, Parker, but I think Ivan Doliani, I spoke a lot more than anybody. He's Italian, right? His brother, I think his older brother was in Bob's class too.
You guys had that Italian root thing. I was like the American dude in Italy, but I could speak Italian, but my Irish dad and German mom were definitely not Italian. So you look at that, but you guys that had the Italian culture thing, you did absorb 80% more into that world than the Teen Club on Post world. That's what I think, right?
Correct. Yeah. I don't think I had I think Bobby Miller was one of those kind of guys that I hung out the most, that was off the base, because he lived not too far from where I lived. But I remember a lot of guys that I even played soccer with it from the DYA there. I have some photos that I'll get over to you. You're going to laugh, but I have a lot of that stuff my mom kept, which is really good. It brings me out to the roots end of it. But, you know, Doliani, and then, you know, the funny thing is I played 2 years at DYA football too. So, you know, I thought football was for me, but man, you talk about getting knocked out. I didn't watch football. I just try to learn it, but it was the wrong way of doing it. It wasn't like soccer, right? I remember playing with the Morrell brothers. I don't know if you remember Adrian and Sean. Adrian played, I think, at Dallas Cowboys eventually.
Okay.
Running the tailback. Yeah. And I was in class with Sean, Adrian. But Adrian and I used to hang out a lot because we were on the same team.
I didn't know we had a pro. Oh, that's the first time
Adrian
I knew.
Morrell. Yeah.
Okay.
Adrian and Sean are connected. And I think that connection was verified through Teddy's old website where you talk about Sean, but Sean and Adrian. And we used to go around, you know, like I don't know, screaming at the books at the library, making the teachers, you know, the librarians chase us out, you know, things like that, you know. And then I played another year of football, and that was basically it. But I didn't really hang out much, not too many. I think the soccer team I knew pretty good. As far as the varsity guys go, they knew me because my brother was, you know, I don't know, he was an all-star. He had freaking captain and all that stuff. So Bob was pretty good at what he did at that time. But, you know, it was just one of those kind. I just have a lot of good memories, especially with the teachers. I was good. I think I told you this a while back when I got there in third grade. Mrs. Clegg was my teacher, you know, for third grade. It was great. I had some good teachers, and then all the way through. And Miss Wilkie at fifth grade.
Right.
I don't know if you remember her, very tall lady.
I remember the big tall blonde lady. Yep, I remember her.
Yeah, that's
I think I had her. I think we were in class together. Did you go in clase de la neve? Did you go to class in the
Yes.
Okay.
And I saw that, and you know what's funny? I think I still have that same that shield that was created, the cloth shield. That I think I have that someplace.
The little thing that we wear in our ski jackets, right?
Yeah, and I went there, and I was there. And the funny story about that one, obviously I didn't know how to ski. Were you a skier then? Did you ski?
I thought I could ski, so I told them I couldn't. They put me in advance, and I almost flew off a mountain to the side, and I wrecked, and I went upside down in some deep powder. But the next year I knew how to ski. Now,
I was a basic.
I remember that. I remember people that were there. Robert Hatton, Leah Hauser. Those were a couple of people. I think maybe Robert Hatton was my roommate. That's what I remember of that time. You know, I think I remember Mike Walker in the background, possibly you. And
I was there.
Yeah, so it's like it's who your roommate was, and then who you'd see everybody. Remember, we'd go out.
That's funny.
We would save up our money to go buy a soda with the meal every day. We would ski in the morning, and we would ski in the afternoon. And we'd have a nap time, and then like a class.
Right.
Really quick class, like online school now.
I remember getting in trouble there. That was my biggest thing. Is obviously I was a basic skier. I remember getting in trouble. I don't think it was any of my fault. So I got in trouble. Mrs. Martin, was it Mrs. Martin?
Mrs. Martin, yep.
Yeah, she yelled at me. I think we took a bus, right? We had to take a bus.
Mm-hmm.
I got yelled at because on the ski lift on the way back up, I forget who the girl was. She falls off the ski lift thing. The Palma, I think they call it
Palma lift. Yeah. Right. That thing was horrible. I fall off that thing. It would tow me into the trees. That was a piece of crap. Man, talk about killing your confidence learning skiing. I remember getting almost up to the top and going, flying back, knocking people off, going backwards, like just as I'm coming to the peak before it takes you over the lip. That's when I would freak out and, oh my God, I didn't make it. I let go too soon.
So you're saying things. You're sparking these little thoughts. Like, I think I remember him getting in trouble. And well, what happened was the girl in front of me, however distance it was, falls off, and she's trying to get up, but she's not on it anymore. And I'm the next one. I'm coming up to her. I'm trying to tell her, get out of the way.
Yeah, you're trying to go around, and you're laying right in the track. You're like, you can't. You have no control. You don't know how to parallel. You're on a snowplow.
Right.
How do I maneuver this thing like a water skier? Right.
There was no maneuvering. It was straight on. And I nailed her, right? So we both fall, and they got to stop the whole thing. So I think the embarrassment of Mrs. Martin was, oh my gosh, what is he doing? He could have just went around her, right? No, I didn't know how to do that. But that was my biggest moment, was that moment of me getting in trouble by Mrs. Martin because I rammed into the girl. that was sitting on the path.
It's not like you did it on purpose, but hey, remember how you get in trouble for stuff you didn't do? You know, you walk by somebody threw a water balloon. Why were you around when they threw the water balloon? I'm like, geez, guys.
Guilty by association. You know what I mean?
Right. You know, so that's a true. It'll be interesting to hear your brother's side of this, you know, both your brothers, because at different times, and you know, your brother graduated. So he was there probably what, 7th through 12th or 8th through 12th?
Yeah, Bob gets there. Yeah, exactly. Bob gets there right at 8th through 12th because we were in Würzburg, Germany. So we get transferred out there, and you know, Bob kind of does his thing. And I don't really know much what Bob was. You know, I knew a lot of his friends because of the soccer side of it. But I think Bob had a lot more success.
I'll be the podcast detective on this one.
Good, right? Good. You can pull a lot.
Yeah. We'll see. You'll be like, wow, I didn't know this about my brother. But no, it's not like I'm Walter Cronkite. I'm like, remember the time, you know, it's simple as like, what do you think of in Italy? Going to the Foodland and getting a grape or orange Fanta, getting a booster burger at a 509th game. You know, these kind of things trigger those memories. And then today, Kara Gordon posted something about wicker. Everyone was buying, all the Army people were buying wicker chairs, wicker tables. Like, it was such a big thing, right? And then there was the gold factories. People, get the gold. Like, there was this stuff like, if you were American, you had to get this Italian stuff. Like, we're never going to get this much for this price. It's a hookup. And then she brought up the UFO clothing place, the UFO clothes. I used to buy some pants and stuff over there.
Yes.
You know, that changed. Go ahead.
Yeah, funny you say UFO because when I played at the club, we were sponsored by UFO.
UFO, as the Italians call it, right?
Yep.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's exactly right. We were sponsored from them. And that's how I know that. But my brother and I, Bob and I talk all the time how after practice with Mr. Ritchie, we used to go to Foodland, pick up a Pepsi and either a Snickers bar and a Milky Way and walk to the bus stop outside of the base.
And the number one bus stop right out front?
That's it. There
was nothing going on the back gate going anywhere. So you had to go to the number one bus, go downtown, go over the bridge, and then cut to the right or get off and walk, you know.
That's what we did.
Right.
We would go all the way down towards downtown, get off and walk home. My brother and I did that a lot, which was really fun. But, you know, I remember the bus stops. I remember, like, you know, being so close to Vicenza. My bus route was like the last one. So I'd go outside of Vicenza, drop everybody off and come home. And then I'd be like, 40 minutes later. But I remember all that stuff, the bus stops and everything. I have a pretty good recollection about, you know, a lot of the class stuff and the things we did. I think because I'm just more about, you know, what I missed when I left and how I liked it. But I always like what you're doing is great because you're putting things back together. And to me, it's always about putting some past back together. Because my brothers and I have already spoke that. So my mom lives in Vicenza now. Mm-hmm. Right? She just left last year. COVID hit. She found her place. She got her condo and everything. And she's staying there. She's living. We have not been back as three brothers since 1983 with my mom at the same time. We have not done that. We are putting it together so we can get back after COVID, obviously, so we can get back and sit down and be able to go see everybody that we used to see together as brothers, because we have never done that. It's always been on different stages. So we have told ourselves, we got to get back together.
Get the band back together, the Blues Brothers.
Yeah, we just got to do that. And that's what we're all planning to do. But my brother right now, you know, he's getting older and stuff like that. So it's one of those kind of things. And he's probably going to.
He is. We're not, but he is. Go on.
Yeah, he's going to go back. He talks about going back and living. So, which, you know, it's like you said, it's home. It's what we miss. And, I miss everything about it. But trust me, I love the United States. Where I'm at in Fort Lauderdale, I don't think, I love the place. I like the warm weather, I like the water.
No, that was one of my possible destinations, was Fort Lauderdale or California. I just saw more cool movies about California. Florida had a couple of spring break ones, which were mainly in Fort Lauderdale. I'm like, that'll be fun. And so I looked at that. That was how I was making my decision where I was going to live. And now it's just like the price is right, North Carolina. So that's how I made my decision. You know, affordability, property tax.
Yeah, it's good there.
Greenery, ocean access. I like it all here. Now, had a lot of beautiful things in California. I was noticing during the podcast, I'm a little white. I was more tanned over in California, more consistently. So I'm like, I got to get outside pretty soon. we'll probably have you back on. Who did you see that made you think, like, was there anybody that you watch, you're like, oh, I haven't seen them, or I hadn't thought about them? Because there's 40 podcasts. I don't know if you've seen them all.
No, I haven't gone through all of them. No, but I'm still doing it. My brother, Bob, was the one that put me onto it because he was talking to Denise, and that's how it all connected. And I was like, oh, let me go take a look. You know what I mean? And just go from there. But no, I've got to go through all of them because the funny thing is once I get the names or start to recollect, things start to pop out. It just depends who they are and stuff like that. But like I said,
there's a couple, Peter West and Mike Walker. They were in our grade in that era when you were there.
Okay, so I'll get to that one. I'll definitely look at it. But I'm going to send you the photos. Like I said, I'll put them up and I'll send them to you so you get them. I'm pretty sure going to spark up a lot of the 86 guys from those classes of Brune and Wilkie. And then I have some DYA photos that are still around. This is cool. You got Marcus and I like competing against each other. It's funny to see, right? Because I sent Marcus
with his blonde Nordic mop.
Yeah. He goes, oh my gosh, look at me then, right? It's funny. Ralph Schuberg's in there. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know what he's doing on the field. He looked like he's lost, but it's all
I did
good.
one with Ralph. You can see Ralph. He's on one of the podcasts.
Okay. And
then kind of look when you go to the channel, click videos, and then you can see all 40 or 42 of them.
Will do.
They are.
No,
awesome.
For sure.
I appreciate you coming on. We could maybe do another one later. Maybe reunite you with some friends or have your brothers on, and I definitely want to have your brothers on. I really enjoyed talking to you today. I got to go catch up with some of the errands, but this was a good long podcast.
Yeah, me too.
It
was great.
Easy listening for somebody to see a different perspective of somebody who was there and then just pulled out of there, but always wanted to get back. It's a very interesting story. And I think in their hearts and minds, by making the podcast, people want to get back there mentally, at least. Yeah. That's where they want to get back to.
No, for sure. No, listen, you gotta be lucky to be at Vicenza anyway, because it's a great little place anyway. So if you look at it, so it's an honor to be.
I think it was the people, the time, the experience.
Yeah.
If you were just dropped in Vicenza and you're from Vicenza and you didn't know our experience, people from all over the world, or oh, he's from California, he's from Texas, she's from so-and-so, it's like, the stuff that was created there. I like your dog. We're in a dog cast.
She's trying to, you got errands to do. She's like, hey,
beautiful
can we
dog.
Go outside?
Hi, doggy. Hi, dog. I love the dog. Hi. Oh, what a gorgeous dog.
Who's that?
I love your dog. Awesome, man.
All right. So listen, we'll stay in connection. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. And listen, like I told you, like when we talked the first time, it was like we never disconnected. Like that's what's great about this whole thing. So,
I appreciate you reaching out, man. I look forward to talking to your brothers, and maybe we'll meet up one of these days.
For sure. It'll happen. You know how that goes. All right. Thanks, Lenny.
Buddy. I'll talk to you.
Okay.
Ciao.